Good. All good in the hood.
Good. Where are you at today?
I am up in Big Bear.
Oh, really? It's still snowing.
Excuse me?
Is it snowing up there?
It snowed this morning. Right now it's really windy, but the snow is melted, but it did snow this morning. It was really beautiful up
Wow,
here.
that's crazy. It's been a weird year for weather. But anyway, we didn't come here to talk about weather. I thank you for taking the time, man. Longtime fan. Glad you were able to jump on for a few questions anyway.
Well, of course.
I don't know how you want to begin. You want to introduce yourself, I guess, what you've been in and what you're working on now, and so we can add some of that in there. And then I've got about 5 questions and about 30 minutes of your time.
Okay. I'm just gonna grab a water real quick. Is that cool?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Got my coffee
All
right
right.
here. I'll wait on you.
All right. For all you uninitiated viewers out there, my name is Marc Ferrari. I'm most known for being the co-guitar player in the band Keel that was signed to A&M and MCA Records through Gold Mountain back in the 80s. Our first major label album, The Right to Rock, was released in 1985. We're actually celebrating our 40-year anniversary this year. 1984 is the year that we first got together, recorded our first album for Mike Varney's label Shrapnel. But in 1985, in January of 85, The Right to Rock was our first major label release. It was produced by Gene Simmons. Gene also went on to produce the next Keel album called The Final Frontier, which was released in 1986. So Keel, I did 4 albums with Keel, a lot of touring. We were one of those coulda, woulda, shoulda bands. We had a pretty high profile. We did a fair amount of touring, but we never had that breakout huge single that allowed us to headline arenas and that kind of thing. So I left Keel in the spring of '88 and put another band together, which went through a lot of twists and turns, and finally came out as the band Cold Sweat in 1990. Released one album, which was released in June of 1990. And we had a decent year of touring on that one too. We opened for Dio on a big section of his Lock Up the Wolves tour. And we did tours with the likes of some smaller bands like Sleaze Bees and Savatage and a few others out there. But that album kind of came and went pretty quickly. Unfortunately, it was released around the time that there were certain shifts in musical tastes. And by 1991, after the Nirvana album hit, bands like ours were considered dinosaurs.
Right.
So I recorded a total of 5 albums between Keel and 6 if you include the Keel album Keel 6 Back in Action, which was released in '98, and 7 if you include the new album called The Streets of Rock and Roll that was released in 2010. Your viewers might also recognize me from being in Wayne's World. I was one of the guitar players in both the Wayne's World movies.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a fun thing to do. So that's me in a nutshell. No.
All right. So let me ask you a question, because you opened up a bunch of the questions I had already. But looking back on your 40-plus year career, are there any moments or achievements that you hold particularly close to your heart? And if so, why?
Well, there's always a few highlights. I think any guy, any musician you ask that question to would come back with some highlights, career highlights. For us, certainly being on the Bon Jovi Slippery When Wet tour, the last leg of that tour was pretty amazing. We were playing multiple nights, sold out venues. 3 nights at Madison Square Garden, Jersey Meadowlands, Nassau Coliseum, Great Woods, and outside of Boston, where I moved from. That's a highlight. Opening up for Aerosmith, a highlight. Opening up for Van Halen, a highlight. Playing in the United Nations building, a highlight. So yeah, I guess you could. There's multiple highlights. we were one of those bands that was just kind of bubbling under the surface, waiting to have that big breakout hit. I always say success in the music business is kind of like playing a slot machine. If you stay at it long enough, you'll hit the jackpot. But most people run out of money or time before that happens. So we had a little jackpot, but we didn't have the huge jackpot.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So, as you continue to age, as we all do, what legacy do you hope to leave behind as a musician, and how do you want to be remembered by future generations of fans?
I think that in our case, we were a band that we were really true to ourselves. We didn't try to be anything else. We are who we were. We were all dyed in the wool '80s hard rock guys. And in my case, actually, I've recorded a total of 12 albums between the Keel stuff and Cold Sweat and 3 solo albums and a few other things, and that's, I guess, my life's work, and long after I'm worm food, hopefully future generations will, look back fondly at this era of time, the commercial hard rock era, which I guess you could say started roughly in 1983 when Quiet Riot's album topped #1, and you had the US Festival that year, the hard rock heavy, and that's really when things exploded, was '83. Because I remember living in Boston in '83, and I had all these. I had the Rat EP, and I had the Motley Crue's EP, and a Great White and Dokken. All these bands were releasing EPs, and the scene was just starting to come to fruition. By '84, it really exploded. So, yeah, I'm hoping again that people look back at that era with fondness and know that it was a great time to be a rock musician.
Perfect. These aren't too bad, right?
Yeah.
So aging inevitably brings changes to our physical and mental abilities. How do you cope with any limitations or challenges in your performance as a musician now that or even in the creative process? Is it different? How do you cope?
Well, I feel lucky so far. I think I have still all my faculties, Sometimes my fingers don't move as fast as I want them to anymore, but that's also a function of not playing as much. Back in the day, we were playing every day. I was rehearsing or practicing, recording every day. And, as a younger guy, even before I moved out to California, I was playing 3, 4, 5 hours a day. It's just what I did. These days I'm not playing as much, so maybe the fingers don't, respond as much as you want to. It's kind of like an athlete. Come on, you don't see too many professional athletes past their 40s. It's very rare that you see, any kind of professional athlete past 40 years old. Baseball, I guess I've seen some. Nolan Ryan pitched till he was like 47, and Clemens pitched until he was 45. It's rare. Most guys, their prime years are in their 20s, so it's into their 30s. But it's just like anything else. I don't think I've lost anything mentally, not yet, anyways. Maybe once in a while I forgot where I put something, but I feel pretty good for a guy that's 62 years old right now.
Right. So a couple more for you. Do you ever imagine you'd still be doing it for this long? Still be relevant making music?
That's a good question. I think I would have hoped to have been. I would have loved to have had a slightly long. Well, it's really starting to snow pretty good right now. I would have loved to have a longer playing career. Because a lot of the bands that came up during that era are still out there in some form. You've got Queensryche out there, you've got Tesla out there, you've got Dokken, Slaughter, Warrant, Poison. They're still out there playing. They were bigger bands than us, and so obviously they can go out there and get more gigs than us. So I would have loved to have a slightly longer playing career, but it wasn't meant to be. But I'm happy that there's been a resurgence in the commercial hard rock era. and it seems now that people are rediscovering it, and maybe it's the generation, it's the kids of the folks that were originally coming to the shows and buying the records back in the day, and they're discovering this music, through their parents. So I think it's great.
Perfect. Let's see. So looking back on your career, is there anything you wish you had done differently? Or do you have any regrets as far as being a musician or some choice in the music business?
I can honestly tell you that I don't have any regrets. I mean, this is my, I was very focused and determined from a very early age to, I saw Kiss in 1976. That was my aha moment. I knew I wanted to be up there on stage, making noise, jumping around and that kind of thing. I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it when I was 14 years old, but I knew what I wanted to do. And, we were lucky in Keel that, we weren't really screwed over by management, All right, so maybe the record companies didn't, take their laps around the track as well as they should have. But we didn't. I don't think we were victims at all. The only thing we were victims of was just changing culture. As as the grunge movement took over from the commercial hard rock movement. Again, a lot of bands like ours just kind of fell out of favor for a while. Very few bands rode that that era of time through. Maybe Aerosmith, maybe Bon Jovi, a few others, still were doing good numbers in the 90s, but that was a rarity. But I don't have any regrets. It's not like, I wish I would have, signed with this manager, or I wish I would have done this or done that. I stuck to my guns. When I decided to leave Keel in '88, it was because I thought the band was going in a more commercial direction than it needed to be, bringing in a keyboard player and writing popular songs. I've always been a, straight ahead, two guitar band guy, Judas Priest, AC/DC, Thin Lizzy, UFO had two guitars, but a keyboard player. Aerosmith, these are all bands that Kiss, two guitars. So, really, that's the direction I was born and bred in, and so that's why I stuck to my guns back then and decided to leave Keel in '88 when keyboards and poppy music started to raise their ugly head. But look, even through it all, I remained friends with Ron. There was no bickering, no bloodshed, no backstabbing. We respected each other, through all of it, and I still, Keel still gets together to play once in a while, and we're really hoping to celebrate this 40-year anniversary as best as we can.
Perfect. First, I want to let you know that I'm not ignoring you as you're talking. I'm trying not to interject, so the audio is perfect.
Yep.
Okay. I didn't want you to think I was totally ignoring you because you made some great points and I wanted to respond, but it's so great what you're saying that I'm just going to let it record.
Yeah.
Last one I have, and then I want to chat with you for 1 second, but what advice would you give to younger musicians who are just starting off their journey as a hard rock, heavy metal, I don't say in this case, guitarist?
Well, you know what? Frank Zappa said it best. There's more business than music in the music business. So as good as a musician as you may be, you also need to take care of business. And I learned that very early on. That's one reason why I wrote the book that I did, Rockstar 101, was to help up and coming musicians, help guide them through the steps of starting a band, starting a partnership. What to look for, what pitfalls and potholes are out there to possibly derail your career. So in addition to advising young musicians to develop their craft as a musician and as a writer, I also encourage them to educate themselves as to the business of music, and it's evolving all the time. I mean, when we started, there was no digital anything, no digital delivery, no Spotify, no MP3s, no internet, no nothing. It was all analog, Matter of fact, the Keel album that we recorded in 1986, late 86, with Michael Wagner was one of the first digital recordings out there. So much has happened in the time that I started and to now. And unfortunately, these days with the internet, it allows, and certainly AI also coming into play here, which is to me really scary. But the internet and all the tools that are available for musicians now to create music, what it allows is more people to get into the game, which happens to dilute the whole musical gene pool, unfortunately. So it's a two-edged sword. Technology has always been a two-edged sword. So encourage people to learn about technology, and again, as I said on the onset, to learn about the business of music.
Awesome. Mark, that's all I had, except I wanted to tell you, you mentioned all those records. They're sitting behind me on the shelf on vinyl. Long-time fan, so it's kind of cool to catch up with you.
All right.
Wait, you grew up in Massachusetts?
Well, not really. Actually, no. I'm from Western New York. I'm from a small town between Buffalo and Rochester, but I moved to Boston when I was 18. Graduated high school and just got the hell out of Western New York because there was nothing there. And I was there for 3 years, and then moved out to LA.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm originally from New York. I'm only a couple years behind you. But I didn't know if you ever got down to any of those cool clubs in New York, like Lemoore and everywhere else.
Oh yeah, well, when I was living in Boston, we used to, me and my buddies, we used to drive down for the weekend. Go to Lemoore.
Go to Slip Disc?
Probably. There was a couple of clubs in the city, Peppermint Lounge. I remember going to Lemoore's, and then Keel played Lemoore's several times.
Yeah,
Anvil opened up for us once there. Pretty crazy. But yeah, remember hanging out at Lemoore's quite a bit, actually.
Yep, I love that place. And then the Limelight, I think we used to go to every once in a while.
Limelight, I was at Limelight several times. There was another place that was like a tunnel. I forgot the name of it, but it was like going into a subway tunnel. That's all I remember.
Underground.
Huh? That could be. This was, again, pushing 35, 38 years ago.
Anyway, that's all I had. I appreciate you taking me up on the offer. I'll keep you in the loop as I come up with trailers, and then eventually when it comes out, I'll let you know.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you for jumping in.
All right. Fair enough. Thanks.
Take care of yourself.
All right.
All right.